It's the final word. It's our weekly show. It's me, Adam Collins. It's him, Jeff Lemon. We don't have Daniel Norcross with us until Saturday because Daniel's going on holiday.
Is he?
Yeah, he's taking.
Where's he going?
Because I don't know, and this might reduce what
Australian lighting. Where's he going?
Where are you going? Australian lighting. This might compromise what I'm about to say here. I'm not sure whether he's taking Catherine overseas. I hope he is, because when he does, he'll have with him his NordVPN. Because Daniel and I have spoken quite a lot about VPNs.
I was wondering why you were bringing up. Okay.
He's not doing the Lord's test, although he's going to do a few daily shows. Well, he'll be back by Saturday. But they're away right now. Right now. That's the main point.
Sure. So when he's watching, some sport from a country that doesn't have it.
Well, he's into that Midsummer Murders show, isn't he? And he's into the Antiques Roadshow and all that sort of shit that he watches. He's into stuff that is on the national broadcaster, very much on the television, and he will need to service his interests. And to do that, he will have with him a VPN, the NordVPN, and you can service your interests when you go on holiday as well. Maybe you're a cricket type. Maybe you're a cricket type who goes away in October. A lot of cricket people go to Greece in October. Why? Because it's the most southerly part of Europe. It's still sunny in Crete in October. There's always cricket people in the south of Greece in that month. If you're one of these people, if you're busy playing, or if you like my mate Roger and playing 60 games in the year, if you can't bear not to be where cricket is at until the end of the season, which this year is the 29th of September in this country, then you can go away with your nordvpn.com/TFW. Not only will you be able to access all the things you have at home, which, for me, it's not that I'm desperate to watch TV when I'm on holiday. It's not that I'm like dying to put on, but sometimes you just need to do something. You just need you need to grab something. You want to watch a couple of minutes. You just don't want to be fucked around by having to sign up to a new thing. I remember when This Is Us was finishing a couple of years ago. What a TV show. What a tearjerker. Last episode ever, I didn't want to watch it 2 weeks after Rach and I got back from holiday. We wanted to watch it then. We didn't have a NordVPN at the time. We had to sign up to the local UAE fucking streaming service, paid about $4 million to do so. Had I had Nord hooked up then, I could have watched The Last Step. I could have watched Mandy Moore one last time on television, NordVPN.com/TFW. Discount because of us. 30-day money-back guarantee because of us. In the show notes, but don't even need the show notes. NordVPN.com/TFW. I'm sure you're using it right now, Jeff, because you're in America.
Yeah, I'm using it all the time because it is the thing that makes me able to do the other things that I need to do, both professionally and personally on the internet. So, take that as you will. And Roger, get 400. Come back to me when you got 400.
In fact, he's going to play. He's going to hit his 400th MCC game next year.
Okay.
So, which is staggering. There's like 4 people who've ever done that. I love playing with him. He's a ripper. Because he keeps his stats and all that kind of thing. And, it's nice. It's nice. I can tell you what took the 50th wicket for the season yesterday, which is nice.
It's a good season.
50 at 14 I've got so far. So I'm not done yet. Got 8 games to go, including the
JJ
final word
Briggs.
game. Final word game at, where are we playing? Dulwich. We're playing at Dulwich Cricket Club. That's on the 20th of September. We've got an 11. We've got more than an 11. It's under control, I promise you. Jeff's playing, sort of. I'm playing. We're all fucking playing. So be there. 20th of September, there are going to be a lot of people about. We're going to do what we always do and put a shitload of money behind the bar afterwards and buy the pizzas. And, Jeff, you can join with me on that because you'll be there. And as will the ODB team, who are our other club, and Jeff's played for and I play for. It's all very incestuous, isn't it, in social cricket?
It is.
But the 20th, 4 p.m. start. It could well be the day that Surrey wrap up the championship. They're playing Durham at home that week. Who's to know? That's all I have to say on that.
Okay.
I have one more thing to add before we jump into real things. Live show tickets. If you got I've just been pondering this a little bit. Cricket clubs. If you play in a cricket team or at a bigger club, do a social do around our live show. Every social secretary of every club's looking for shit to do that isn't a back to front draw, that isn't a fucking sportsman's night. Like, let us do the sportsman's night for you. You won't make any money out of it because you'll be buying the tickets from us, but you get a discount and you can put everyone on a bus or something or get them all up on the train or whatever it is, have a few beers, watch a show with what will, I guarantee you, 5 outstanding guests in each capital city. Most of them are the night before the test match. You'll have a great time. And the Melbourne one, we have hundreds and hundreds of seats to sell. So if you're a Melbourne club secretary or whatever, just come. And if you want to get the group discount, just email me or text me or fucking AOL messenger me or MSN messenger. I'm everywhere. ICQ me.
Pigeon.
Pigeon me. Anyway, that's it. Live shows. Be there.
Okay, I like it.
England, Sri Lanka wash up. Don't really want to do much wash up, but I just got a thought for you, Jeff. I just want to put something to you. I'm throwing a Dukes around from hand to hand right now because that's how I'm hardwired.
Yep.
Beautiful dark Dukes.
I can see that.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's beyond cherry red.
Love
it's
bowling with this ball.
It's like a bruised cherry.
I'm never going to use it again because it was a wicket-taking ball, but I love playing with it at my desk. Angelo Matthews.
But that's all right. They'll probably just throw that into a test match next week if you take it along. They'll be like, this one was doing a bit.
It's exactly the point I wanted to raise. So Angelo Matthews, Big Ange, the other Big Ange, has not unreasonably complained about the ball that got pulled out of the box when Sri Lanka were batting on day 3, right?
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist necessarily.
Okay, this is an interesting start to it.
I'm not racist, but I'm not a conspiracy theory, but
no.
But I have in the past pondered, the thing at the Oval last year, my not only my theory, but one that I was pushing at the time about what year was that ball out of the box. I think we need to get smart people together. Maybe Jay Shah can do this.
Okay.
Commission the cricket committee to do this, a working group or some such, and work out what's going on with balls in the box. We need more transparency in the process. Part 1, we need to actually know how the process runs. Part 2, we need some rigor to this. It can't just be like the whim of here's a box of balls that's roughly the same. And the reason we can't do that anymore is it's actually having an effect on test matches. And that's okay. But I don't mind that balls do different things. But I actually think that there should be some guardrails in place. And I don't think it's that hard to do that. Having a bunch of balls that have been assessed as being of a certain age in a more rigorous way than, as Louis Cameron told us, him bowling 48 balls in the nets with one to rough it up. I want it to be more rigorous than that. You know what I'm trying to say? This can't be that difficult, right? Because it does affect test matches. Edgbaston 2019, the Oval last year, Old Trafford a few days ago. There'll be many, many more instances of this where a change of ball when it's been knocked out of shape has really changed the match. And I just feel like there's ways of safeguarding against the integrity of the process being under the spotlight.
There are instances of it, but I don't think there are that many because the ball changing thing has not been so much a part of the game until the last few years. It's really that England team particularly recently were able to do it and have been able to make an art form of lobbying those umpires, Shane Warne style. If you ask them 15 times, they'll do it eventually. And Sri Lanka didn't do that. They asked once, they got told no, and so they pissed off and they kept bowling with the shit ball for 60 overs and Jamie Smith made 100 and, happy days as far as England were concerned. This is the point that Nasser Hussain was making on the commentary and Mark Butcher, that the reward you get for batting well is that you stuff the ball up. That's always been the entire thing has been you make the ball softer, you knock it out of shape, you smack it through the covers a bunch of times, you ping it into the boundary boards, you defend it for 40 overs, and using the ball makes it less effective for the bowler. That's what's supposed to happen. And then you've got these bowling sides going to the umpires and saying, this ball's a bit out of shape. Well, yeah, okay, that's because it got belted enough times that it's a bit out of shape. So that's your problem. Suck it up. You're supposed to bowl with that. So it just doesn't work the way that they've got the looseness with which the guidelines are interpreted at the moment. And sure, they've got the ball gauge, and so maybe it slightly snags on one edge because it's ever so slightly out of shape. I mean, I don't think that should be cause to get a ball changed at all in the first place.
Right. And
then there's the second layer to it, which is what you're talking about, which is if it is going to be changed, surely you can't change it unless the replacement is going to be so similar to what you've already got that then what would be the point of changing it? That's not supposed to be how it works. There's so much obsession about the condition of the ball. You've got 80 overs in a test match until it gets replaced, and you cannot replace it until that time, and you have to deal with what you've got. And not to mention everybody losing their shit about ball tampering, because somebody scratched one side of it with their thumbnail or whatever it is, as though this was going to make a massive difference to the entire match. You've got all of that focus on the condition of the ball, and then you can just whip one out and throw in one that's completely different. And I was watching that session, a play where they changed the ball and where Angelo Matthews had been defending really, really well, played well for hours, and then suddenly he had a ball that was hooping all over the place, and it wasn't a new one. It wasn't that he had to deal with it at 80 overs. He suddenly just had to deal with it mid-innings. He eventually gets out, and that's part of what ends up sending Sri Lanka down the path. And they set England an okay target, but who's to say they wouldn't have set them 280 or 300 if Angelo Matthews hadn't been able to bat on for a longer period of time. So it is materially affecting test matches, and it isn't good enough to just randomly go, oh, well, this one will do. Found a box in the back of the car, got a few balls knocking around in there. Let's just pluck one out of there.
Look, I know that there is a process they go through, right? I'm not suggesting that there is integrity. It's more that because I think it's the being seen to be doing the right thing bit. And Ange saying the other day that Angelo saying that they didn't have the right number of balls for the right amount of overs bowled. That was his critique. I mean, I can't verify his claim, but that's what he said. And he made the same point you did about the objective for a batting team over time is to take the shine off the ball. And if you've done that successfully, you shouldn't be penalised for doing it too well. It's not perfect. There's no ideal solution here, but I feel like it's a process that might be improved. Just on Sri Lanka before we jump off that series, Kamindu Voges. I feel like I'm invested in players I've seen the debut of. I don't know if you feel the same way, but if I've seen something, and Kamindu made a half century on his debut at Gaul, that very special week where we were at a couple of years ago, which increasingly, as I look back on it, is one of the happiest weeks of Test cricket that we've done, like right in the middle of the protest out on the street, and the way Sri Lanka were able to turn that around, having 5 players out with COVID and all the rest of it. And, Kamindu's now played 7 Test innings for 3 Test hundreds and 2 other scores above 50. Only 2 times he's walked out in Test cricket, not made it to 50. Average of 92. I mean, talk about go you good thing. I mean, this could be a really special run that he's in the middle of here. If he can get out of this series and maybe make another 100, he could be, getting to that point where Voges was, where he's got an average, in the 90s after 10 Test matches or something like that, which would be terrific. And Jayasuriya, who bowled 2 viral deliveries at Manchester last week, his numbers are broadly levelled out as they do for everybody. But, 72 wickets in 13 matches. He's going beautifully as well. So 2 guys we saw make unexpected debuts in 2022 going strong, and that contributed to Sri Lanka having a much better Test match, I think, than anyone could have imagined after losing their first 3 wickets in 10 minutes on morning one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's excitement to seeing a player, and not just do what he did, but do it in the circumstances that he did with Kamindu, where they're on hiding to nothing really at the point where he comes out. It looks like that match is going one way quickly, and he's the player who's able to, to do it with some style. Like, came out with a lot of confidence, and he had Matthews with him at that point, didn't he? Which helps with the solidity of having someone at the other end who is going well and you can rely on. But yeah, it was probably the most impressive of the innings that I've seen from him, I think, because given that circumstance, given that they've been overwhelmed at times with the bat, given the poor start, the fact that he was able to take that on. So yeah, and I'm just glad for Prabhat Jayasuriya that he's finally getting to bowl somewhere else after playing all of his tests at Gaul. He's finally found a way to make the ball turn on a different strip.
The chat is both of our tests that we're going to in Feb, both in Gaul as well. I don't know.
Oh.
Put us somewhere
do the
else,
double goal again.
I mean, it's great selfishly, great for us.
Logistically,
terrific for us. But I also wouldn't mind going back to Candy, Anyway, whole different conversation.
But at least Bharat and I will get to hang out with the Dairy King again, the ice cream shop owner, who's the
Have you got
the ruling monarch of Gaul.
Is there a 3rd bedroom in that joint that you guys stayed at last time? We'll get it again.
Could be.
There
we could figure it out next to DK's place.
One of our patrons will be staying with you. Just heads up, who I play cricket with. So he wants to come. Staying in England, 2025 international schedule's been released. It's quite convenient as well. I know what I'll be doing next summer because we already have the schedule out, but not viewing it through that prism. I mean, there's ticks and crosses here, right? Zimbabwe, 4-day Test match. Trent Bridge, great, good, terrific. Big box checked. We'll take some credit for that. Not really, but, we did ask those questions of Richard Gould when we interviewed him last year. So great to see it's actually happening. India, 5 Test matches as planned. Great. We all know that. The 100 eating up all of August. Okay, it's annoying, but it's a bit of a thing. Then they play the Windies, the men. This is the Windies early in the summer, South Africa and Ireland late in the summer in white ball internationals. Annoying, though, that the Test summer is always going to end when it ends. Richard Thompson, George DeBell wrote a very fair piece, I thought, on The Cricketer about this. Richard Thompson, in an interview with George in 2023 after the Ashes, said, lamented the fact that the Ashes was all over at the end of July. Those hard, dusty wickets in August and September are part of the nuance of Test cricket. I don't think it'll happen again. Finishing the Test season in July means the whole season feels truncated. The Test summer absolutely will not be squeezed like this in the future. Well, I mean, it is. And we all knew it was going to be. Even when he said that, it's ending on August 4 this year. I'm not saying there's any, again, there's very rarely a perfect solution to these things, but there is some doublespeak going on here where there's a suggestion that they might play Test cricket deeper into the summer. In reality, they are never playing Test cricket any later than this ever again, because the 100 is where the 100 is. And if anything, the 100 will become a bigger part of the summer once there's private ownership. And when the private owners say, in fact, you know how you got that 3-week competition?
3 weeks.
Why don't we make it 6
weeks?
Yeah, why don't we do double round robin? And why don't we play a longer final series? And why don't we add
some teams?
There you go. So anyway, that's the men's side of the ledger. For the women, annoying, it'll be the second summer in a row with no women's Test match. So there was quite a big deal made of playing a Test each summer over here for probably 5 years in a row or something like that. Now 2 without. They have, in the same media release, the spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down, announced that India will play a Test match at Lord's in 2026. So that'll be the first women's Test ever at Lord's. Now, that's great, but I don't know. It's a long way away. It's news and irrelevant news, and this is not relevant to the fact that there'll be no Test match, in my opinion, in 2025. That's just a frustrating part of a schedule that, for the women, ends on the 22nd of July. That's the end of their international summer. So, I mean, again, I know the 100 takes over.
What would be the problem with playing a couple, like a 2-test series or something after the 100 in September, or 3 even? If you've got, rather than divvying it up the way it is, why would it be impossible for the Test team to play then instead of playing white balls? Like this year, you've got Australia playing white ball internationals all through September. Yep. So, okay, what would have been... Yeah. If you could negotiate it with other teams, what would be the problem with playing those earlier in the summer and having some Test cricket later in the summer?
Well, especially when it's India out here anyway. And India are dead keen to play women's Test cricket right now, home and away. And the fact that they're playing at Lord's the next year show there's no lack of ambition. But it's just I don't know. It jars. All of this stuff jars. So,
and why not at least just roll just do a standalone women's Test after the 100 in September, and sort of add that to the men's Test program, so that you can use each to promote each other, and you effectively pitch it as, here are all of the Test matches being played across the summer, and rather than making the distinction by which gender team is playing, use that as like to get that into people's habit that, okay, we go and see as many of the Test matches as possible. September, you're more likely to get games that go a long distance and that have good weather and that have time to get them all through.
On other matters to do with women's scheduling, I'm not sure if you've seen this online during the week, Jeff, that the Women's One Day Championship is expanding in 2026 from 10 teams to 11, which is good. It's great. It's terrific. We want to see that. It's gone from 8 to 10 in the last cycle, and it'll move to 11 from 26 to 29. But the weird bit is they're adding Zimbabwe, who have only had one-day women's status since 2021. They're currently ranked 14th in the world. There's a CricBuzz story which described this as being a decision made for strategic and financial considerations pertaining to the medium-term scheduling, fixture certainty, and confidence that Zimbabwe, as a full member, would be able to meet touring and hosting obligations played into the decision to elevate them above associates. In other words, they're getting graduated privilege because they're a full member already, So if you're the Thai side who are 9th, or the Scots who are 12th, or the Dutch who are 13th, you're an associate nation, but you're being left out in the cold when it comes to this one-day championship. And they shouldn't be. I mean, I get frustrated when the Test playing ambitions of women are suppressed, but this isn't even that. This is one-day cricket where women are being encouraged to play. There's a World Cup, there's a qualifying process, there's rankings, there's all of that. And yet we're not, as Hypercourse, the great John Leather said on social media, maybe there should be tiers, like a first division and a second division. Fine, whatever. But don't leave associates out in the dark, and at the same time include a country who, they're a full member, and that's great. And I'm not saying that the bad thing Zimbabwe get this opportunity, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the countries I mentioned before who've made a far better go of it in women's cricket in recent years. The ICC Championship expanding, we've seen the benefits of that with Ireland knocking off Sri Lanka in straight sets last week. This is a good thing. 24 one-day internationals in the cycle. Just give more countries access to it and watch the product improve.
That is the issue, that Zimbabwe, the women's team, have struggled on the field and just haven't really been a major player. Like, clearly the program there isn't set up well enough yet, and has a long distance to go to develop players who are at that kind of level. You contrast that to, say, a Thailand situation where the focus was on developing the women's team first and foremost, rather than having it be clearly secondary to the men's program, which is how it seems to be in Zimbabwe. And of course, we'd like that to change, and would like that to improve and get them included as soon as possible. But if you're just getting included because of the historical happy accident that through your men's program you happen to get full member status before it had a women's program requirement, because really that's the only reason that Zimbabwe have got it, is that at the time that they got included, there was no requirement for women's cricket. Women's cricket was run by a separate organisation when Zimbabwe were brought in to the fold as a test-playing nation. So that historical advantage means that they then keep getting other advantages, which does reflect the reality of the world, in that the more privilege you have, the more free shit you get. But it doesn't actually help any of the other countries who have put, potentially administratively made more of a concerted effort to get their women's programs as strong as possible. Yeah,
that's well put. It's like grandfathered privilege, graduated privilege, because their men got full member status in 1992. Their women get what is tantamount to full member status in this form. Some 32 years on from that. It doesn't tally.
With a pretty poor on-field record, like they've not been a strong side. They've been beaten by a lot of teams who you wouldn't expect to see a full member country being beaten by, because they don't have the on-field strength of a full member country as yet.
Yeah, whereas some of the associates are clearly duking it out with the best in the world, and we've seen that at World Cups and all the rest of it. And we'll see that with the Scotland women when they play in the World Cup in October. Now, they're back to men's Test cricket for a sec. There was an absolute belter of a match that played out this week with Pakistan hosting Bangladesh in the first of their World Test Championship fixtures. Jeff, I'll get you to talk us through the card. I mean, this is in a week where we're hearing reports that there may not be any bidders for the Pakistan-England men's Test series. Now, we often see that,
right,
and it gets resolved at the last minute and so on. But, Test cricket in Pakistan has been, for the most part, quite watchable since they returned to the fold, hosting Test cricket there in 2021. And this was on the flattest track. I think CricViz worked out the 3 flattest pitches in their entire database, all Rawalpindi, and it's in the last 3 years, and this was one of them. And we had to sit through one of these.
We did. So we sat through, was it 14 wickets in 5 days that we saw at Rawalpindi?
I don't even think it was that many.
Australia got bowled out once and making 500 or whatever, in Pakistan,
right,
where they had the 2 massive opening partnerships. I don't think Pakistan lost a wicket in their second innings.
None for 250 in the second dig. I remember that with twin tons for Imam al-Haq. But like this Test match, Jeff, this is in the context of Bangladesh, all the turmoil after the student protests, the floods, and losing the World Cup to the UAE this week, and all of the unrest, and so much going on, and no one really knowing what's going to come next for the cricket board, as detailed so eloquently by Muhammad Hassan when he spoke on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. And then they pull off their first ever win in Test cricket over Pakistan, and it's in Pakistan as well.
It's in Pakistan, and it's in a situation where it shouldn't have happened, because Pakistan make 448 for 6 batting first. So, massive score. They go along at a decent enough clip. They face 113 overs. Saim Ayub, whose work we've enjoyed, doesn't bat super attackingly at the top, makes 56, and then big 100 for Saud Shakil, who, we were tracking his progress of being a player who very rarely made low scores, but makes a big 100 there. Mohammad Rizwan back amongst it, 171 not out. So they declare at 6 down, having made 448, at which point you could forgive a touring side for falling apart at that stage. you're tired, you've been in the field for a day and a half, all the rest of it. But no, Bangladesh turn around and make 565. And if wicketkeepers are making tons, none better than Mushfiqur Rahim, 191 that he makes. Mominul Haq makes a 50. Lytton Das makes a 50. Mehedi Hassan Jason Mraz makes 77 down the order, and then turns around and turns it on with the ball as well. He takes 4 for 21 as they bowl out Pakistan for 146 in the third innings. Rizwan another 50, so what a match he had. But 146 all out, which means Bangladesh only need 30 to win, and they knock them off none down. That is an extraordinary turnaround after those two massive first innings.
Yeah, and look, a lot of fingers are being pointed at Shan for the first innings, Dick, and I get it. Like, I know Shan's looking to play a more assertive brand of cricket, and injecting time into test matches at Rawalpindi makes a lot of sense. We saw what England did there a couple of years ago. You feel like you need as much time as possible. But
you probably need to not go at 3.96 and over. You can probably do that if you've gone at 5 and over rather than 4 and over.
That's right. They had two set players. I haven't got it in front of me, you two, but they had
Saud Shakil and Rizwan.
And Rizwan
was
the big
hundreds, but
someone was not out who was dashing.
Shaheen Shah Afridi was with him, smashing it.
So they could have, anyway, it's a moot point now, but then
could have pounded another 50 or 100. But,
and I get why I understand the logic behind declaring earlier to get yourself time to take 20 wickets when you batted first at Rawalpindi on that sort of surface, but still loved it was Mehedi taking the wickets with Shakib. Issam made a good point that of all the Bangladesh players who are compromised by what's going on there right now, Shakib's the one right in the middle of it. I mean, he's a parliamentarian, right? And amongst the elite, and that is, I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of this. I don't know enough about it to comment on it, but Issam does, and he said that he's the player who could have his career, his livelihood, all under threat at the moment. So for him to perform the way he did, I saw he got into a scuffle with an umpire as well because, you know, it's
of course he did. What does he do in Parliament if they don't get the votes they want on a piece of legislation or something? What's his version of kicking the stumps out of the ground in the chambers? What does he do? Do he throw the mace?
Yeah, I was going to say getting the mace and like fucking twatting someone with it, something like that. But anyway, so Bangladesh winning emphatically in the first test there. It'll be a test match I reckon they'll speak of for decades, right? Their first ever win, and you can't ignore all the wider discussion around the way Bangladesh became a country and the way they achieved independence from Pakistan and the horrors of that period of time in the early 1970s. And I know that when we were in Bangladesh, they still speak a lot about that. So that would have meant an awful lot to them. They go on to a second test match at Karachi, which I think starts this week. So we'll keep an eye on that and report back accordingly.
And the other scorecard, the other extraordinary scorecard that was going around, I'm sure you would have seen it if you're an online cricket person, but that a few people have sent to us, the contrast between Mikolova CC, in which their opener, Max Thompson, makes 186 from 128 balls with 14 sixes. That's out of a score of 271. And then Darley Abbey Cricket Club just decide to block it out for the draw. Their opener, Ian Bestwick, not out from 137 balls. What an exercise in contrasts, you could say.
Yeah, and there's lots going on here. So I've seen a message that's been sent to me from Tom Bestwick, who batted at number, where am I here? He batted down the list with his dad, 5. I think it was. Batted 5, made 4 from 71 balls with a boundary, so probably an edge that's gone through.
Probably an accident, yeah, like a Steve O'Keefe, the one in Candy from 2016, where Steve O'Keefe gets the accidental inside edge to find leg, and it was the only scoring shot in his partnership with Peter Neville. 8 for 161, I'm going to say the score was. Seared in my in the White Line Wireless collective memory after calling that partnership.
Well, Darley Abbey. So here's the go, according to Tom Bestwick. So they were had 8 juniors in their team. It hadn't played league cricket before. Final week of the season, they're getting relegated. I think they get. I think Mikolova get relegated as well by dint of not winning this game. I think I read that correctly. Anyway, there was their captain who was dismissed, given out by one of the teammates, and got in the blue with the umpire. So they weren't happy about that. When he did walk off, he smashed his helmet with his bat in anger. And then when they were batting in reply, they just decided to stick it up him and bat for the draw, and that led towards a barrage of abuse from the same captain on the other side. with all these kids who are playing as part of the game, presumably juniors who would have been 14 or 15 years of age. So the more they got abused, the more they decided just to stick in and stick it up them. And yeah, like Ian Bestwick's 137 ball 0 not out is something that obviously has done the rounds. And I don't know, you're entitled to do that. And the other thing, the last thing, sorry, that I heard yesterday when playing the game, I was the MCC game I was in yesterday. There was a couple of guys who know this league, and the chat is that Max Thompson is playing about 2 levels too low. He's just batting in third team games to bully people and just to make heaps of runs. So I don't know whether, again, all wild speculation, but that's some of the back story that I've been able to deduce from talking to people on WhatsApp the last couple of days, Jeff. So,
well, 17 fours and 14 sixes is a decent day out. It may indicate a player who might be slightly above that level. That's all.
Jeff, I've got one more segment to get through, and I'll do this quickly because we're due for another break, and then we'll get into our interview after it. I'm not going to do a comprehensive county wrap, Jeff, because we haven't got time for that this week, and to be honest with you, I didn't have the time to prep it either, but I will tell you the main bits. Surrey pumped Lancashire. Rory Burns, your fave, made 227, his highest score in first-class cricket, batted beautifully. Rocky Flintoff.
I don't believe that's possible.
He really did. I watched it. I was there commentating on it. Rocky Flintoff, son of 16 years of age, the youngest debutant for Lancashire in like 100 years or something. Got 32 in the first dig and a golden duck in the second when Dan Worrell was running a market on a hat trick at one point. It was the Dan Worrell show again early on the final day. Hampshire and Essex had the chance to set it up on the final day with a couple of declarations, and that would have, given where they are on the table, 4th and 3rd respectively, I felt like a draw was of no use to either team, and they could have engineered it where Hampshire, way behind in the game, having lost time, could have declared, and then Essex could have done the none-for-none thing and set up a chase. But anyway, they declined to do that, so they drew. Somerset were hauling ass in pursuit of 360 on the final day. They were playing against Warwickshire, but they got bad lighted off, not before James Rue hit a 23 ball 50. It looked like he was ready to launch, and then off they came for bad light, which was annoying. It means that Somerset are still 35 points behind Surrey, which is a game and a half at this point with 4 games to go. Worcester had an important win over Kent by 8 wickets, so they're out of the drop zone. Good on you, Worcester. Really pleased to see them up in the 6th spot. Lancashire
that's what Jason Holder was hoping for.
Good on him.
Get himself up there.
Fantastic that they've won that game against Kent, who are last, and Lancashire now are in the drop zone with them. Probably the story of the week. Durham won by an innings and 17 runs over Notts. 100 for Ashton Turner, who's there at the moment. A ton for Alex Lees as well, who gets a ton every week for Durham. But 19-year-old Daniel Hogg took 7 for 66 on debut. Right arm fast, apparently. I've not seen anything of it.
Is that Kyle Hogg's son?
I don't know. It might be. I'm not across the lineage, but people were speaking as though this guy's got a very high ceiling, and 7 for 66 at the first time of asking would suggest as much. So Surrey are well ahead. A lot would need to go wrong for them from here. This week they're away at Trent Bridge. Essex playing Worcester. Essex will need to have a big game at home there. Lancs against Hampshire. Lancs need a win to stay out of the relegation zone. And Warwickshire are hosting Kent. Divi 2, Derbyshire have won their first game at home, Jeff, for 5 years. They beat Glamorgan by 10 wickets. Good on them. Zach Chappell took a 6 for to start them going. And that's a huge thing for Derbyshire, having had their well-documented troubles getting their first victory after so many draws, a few losses. They're finally on the board with a win. Another draw for Leicestershire with Gloucestershire. I felt like Leicestershire really needed to win that game at home. It was a high-scoring affair. Lots of hundreds scored. I note of interest, Jeff, James Bracey, another double, 207 not out. He's having a terrific year, and hopefully he's not far away from England calculations again. Middlesex had a big win to keep them in second spot, so these are the 2 most relevant games of the round in Divi 2. Middlesex rolled Northants for 207 and 167, with Toby Rowland-Jones, blast from the past, taking 11 wickets for the match. And then at the same time that was happening, Sussex got beat by Yorkshire to really open it up in Division 2. This was played at Scarborough, where Sussex were all out for 189 and 236. Ben Code took a fifer. It left Yorkshire 103 to win, and they got their 6 down. Johnny Bairstow was back, made a 50 in the first dig and a duck in the chase. But they did win by 4 wickets, and now Yorkshire, 3 on the trot, given all the draws, They're only 4 points away from second, which is where Middlesex are, who are 6 points away from first, and then Leicester another game behind Yorkshire. So it'll be a really interesting run in Division 2, and we'll, of course, keep you posted on all of those developments as we do each week from the County Championship.
Top 2 teams go up. It's interesting. Well, there's always something happening at Yorkshire these days, and I'm sure they'll be, leading the vanguard to sell the whole joint off to the highest bidder if old mate gets his way to get his money back. But
probably,
interesting times.
Jeff, that's it from us.